I'm Jason from Game-Rave.com, and this is the 100th episode of Game-Rave TV. Today we celebrate this insanely unexpected milestone with the community release of the original PlayStation's Online Connection CD. For those of you unaware, this beta disc provided users with internet access through the PlayStation in the same way you could browse the web through the Sega Saturn's Netlink or the Sega Dreamcast browser disc. That makes sense, since developer Planet Web created all three of the browser discs. Unlike the Saturn and the Dreamcast, however, the Online Connection CD was a private beta used in select schools under the Lightspan initiative. Lightspan was an educational software company that created a suite of PlayStation software to be used in schools and take-home PlayStation system bundles. Each disc was assigned a specific lesson set, be it mathematics, reading and writing, comprehension skills, and more. Teachers would use provided manuals and tests to create lesson plans, assign homework, and allow in-class discussion and activities. The PlayStation software and hardware act as a cost-effective alternative to families and schools who could not afford computers, as well as be more engaging to the children than a paper and pencil. The Online Connection CD was a sort of child's gateway into their first view of the World Wide Web. Supported by Lightspan's Internet Parental Settings, a private educational email server called EdMail, and other minor saving graces, the virgin steps onto the information superhighway could be safely controlled and monitored. EdMail was accessible from the actual online disc, as were 4 specific school homepages. Children could email each other, contact teachers for homework notes, or check out their school page for lessons and other information. It was a fantastic, bold first step into a true learning experience consoles hadn't really been before. And then Sony pulled the plug. Confirmed in a GameSpot article posted in 2000, some 3 years after the beta's initial trial, then Sony executive and fake hype generator Phil Harrison confirmed that after a 9-month trial period, the concept of a consumer-side modem just wasn't feasible from a financial perspective. He wasn't that far off. To put that into context, while Sony had the Lightspan trial going on, Sega already had their consumer-facing modem with the Sega Netlink, a $200 28.8 kilobytes per second cartridge that was slower than the standard computer modem with none of the hard drive functionality. With the Netlink being seen as a commercial failure, Sony was more than likely just using Sega as the barometer to make the final call on the PlayStation modem. An American PlayStation console wouldn't see the internet again until 2004, when the PS2's external adapter was finally released. That leaves us with the trial disc. Abandoned and left to die by its creators, I felt the need to bring it back online 20 years later, no matter what. And let me tell you, when a room full of people asks you, why bother, you do it. After months of piecing together all the necessary parts and steps to get the disc operational in the modern day, without anything to go on, and successfully proving it's fully functional aside from the browser page, it was time to release it to the world. So without further delay, I'll first walk you through the setup of the browser and then what mysteries still need to be solved. In the video, I'll briefly go over what works and how I got there, along with the remaining mysteries left to be uncovered. For a more detailed walkthrough of everything, especially when it comes to the custom hardware you'll need, please reference my ever-evolving guide and FAQ I provide over at GameFAQs.com. As always, the link is listed below, and if you find anything new or solve a mystery, send the info my way and I'll add it and your name to the guide for posterity. First things first, obviously you'll be using an ISO and an emulator or burning it to a CDR for use on the PlayStation. The PlayStation will need to be either modified to use said media or have a compatible GameShark to skip the security read. I used a CDR with the GameShark Pro and it worked fine. Your miles will vary, of course, especially in the emulator arena. The online disc is found at Game-Rave's newly created archive.org site, listed below. The download contains the bin and queue files along with data logs for informational purposes. Just download, unzip, and use your emulator or burning program of choice to get started. Go ahead, I'll wait. Okay, no matter what your path, you're going to need to unlock the disc. With your virtual or actual memory card connected to the PlayStation, exit out of the warning screen and press Start. Choose the key icon by pressing down and then hit X to bring up the password screen in Virtual Keyboard. Type in baseball, all lowercase and no quotes if you're reading it, and press Enter to open the disk's options screen. All you need to do right now is simply save changes and wait for the spinning globe to go away. Once that's out of the way, you can exit and explore the disk. That should take you all of 10 minutes tops. From here on out, I'll focus on the physical users, as emulation folk will have more ideas on what to do than I ever could. Now that we have the disk accessible, we need custom hardware and some old hardware. The custom hardware is a voltage converter, which is needed to flip the PlayStation's internal signal. This can be created as one single cord or as 3 separate pieces like mine was. The reason for mine being in pieces is that I didn't know about the voltage problem when I had the original cord made. Thankfully, I have access to incredible people who can do incredible things. Once you have the inverter cord that will connect the PlayStation to the modem, we can begin assembling the other sourced hardware. Those pieces of hardware are a Netopia 2020 router and a Viking Ringdown device. Fans of the Dreamcast should recognize these since they're normally used to take the Dreamcast back online for its multiplayer and web browser today. Once these are properly set up using either my FAQ or linking directly to the forum from the guide, along with the computer to access the Netopia settings, you can jump back into the online disk. With the baseball password in place, you now have free access to all the menus, which regretfully isn't much. At least it isn't much from the front. Under normal conditions, you have access to the home pages, eventually the browser window, bookmarks, and then the built-in manual. Using the links provided in the guide, you'll also be able to uncover a bunch of hidden files, including animated GIFs of Beavis from Beavis and Butthead, as well as programmer notes for blank pages. What's left to uncover, though, is where the real adventure begins. Having tried everything I could, including learning all about modem initialization strings and more, I'm sure the final solution will just be the dumbest of simple fixes. But if not, here's what's still left to uncover on the disk. Number 1, the browser window. The most obvious missing component. Let me stress that the disk does go online 100%, as it returns proper error messages, autocorrects and auto-forwards web addresses, etc. Right now, the theory about why the web browser isn't working revolves around the speed of the Zoom modem. The Sega Netlink, which the online CD is based on, revolved around the Netlink's 28.8 speed modem. The Zoom modem, by default, registers at 31,000, which is more than likely too fast for the system to handle. This regretfully leads to a second problem. The speed of the modem can be adjusted via initialization strings using the +ms haze command, but so far that hasn't helped the situation. The online CD has a finite set of character spaces to work with, so right now the last few days have been researching how to keep the default settings, but also tacking on the speed options. I plan on continuing this after the video airs. Hopefully someone figures it out. It should be pointed out that I've been attempting all of this with actual hardware and as close to the original 1997 era as I can. Homebrew folks like LameGuy64 here on YouTube successfully used a Raspberry Pi with the PlayStation to have it download an image, but not actually browse the internet. I'm sure with the code gained from the ISO using a modern replacement, likely that would probably do wonders. Not to mention, open up other possibilities. 2. The hidden files. As I point out in the guide, the disk has some curious leads that don't go anywhere. That, if they actually are on the disk, someone with better hacking skills than I can probably find them. The biggest of them are all the demo and sound pages. Besides the readily available Sony and Yahoo page demonstrations, the mysterious sound page appears in the game's table of contents layout file. This alludes to what would be sound bites or clips from various musical artists, including Fleetwood Mac, but any attempt to get it up from within the URL window has provided errors. There's no mention of a music player on disk, and they don't pop up in the Systems menu either. Any attempt to purge the audio files from the disk only produced the sound effects in the game, not the music files. The fourth demo page contains various file names that give credence to a Lightspan-focused demonstration, as file names include Nikki, family, teacher, school, etc. On a lesser note, if you view the files in Notepad or other text-reading computer program, there's an extra page in top of all this, found before the CD's homepage. This basic hidden page contains links not only to the real Sony and Yahoo, but to US Today as well. Number 3. Getting the parental lockout engaged. This feature is completely broken in reality since the site you would need to register it is no longer around. However, using a GameShark might allow either the activation of it or just without the list of blocked sites. Even if it was just hackable to change the wording, would be nifty. Last but not least, the email client itself. This is probably the most interesting and promising of the entire disk, since the browser, even in working condition, would provide a fairly limited viewing of the modern-day web. Edmail was a server-side email client that would be accessed from the PlayStation disk using the browser, but the actual forum page is buried on the disk. You can even still type into the address and body windows. When the disk tries to dial out, it obviously states there's no carrier available since the site is long gone. However, setting up all the account information is done on the disk, which presents a curiosity. Regardless of the program lacking security socket support, if one could add that and figure out how to redirect the disk to a modern-day email client like Gmail, you could once again send emails from your original PlayStation. With the browser obviously outdated, this would be the only real part truly salvageable and usable in its original form. And there you have it, guys. Everything in condensed form for what you need to know and what to be on the lookout for with the Online Connection CD. One of the more oddball ideas thrown around with the disc was that since it shares the same port as the link cable, that in some weird way online play for link cable games could be created. One could even fathom possibly porting the Planet Web code from the Dreamcast over to the PlayStation. Could you imagine downloading PlayStation 1 saves from games like you used to be able to do on the Dreamcast? The sky really is the limit. So with all that out of the way, I leave you to your download and adventures. A shout out and huge thank you to all of my Patreon folk who are along for this crazy ride in private. To celebrate the 100th episode and the release of the online disc, all active members received a custom care package that included Lightspan CDs, school supplies, actual Lightspan lesson plans made from the original Blackline Masters, homework and progress sheets, along with a limited edition reprint of the original Game-Rave fanzine, launched 20 years ago in August. A PDF version of the fanzine can be read on archive.org's site while you're grabbing the ISO. As time goes on, the rest of the fanzines will find their way online. Next week, I will be off both to recoup from the longest week ever and to get game pages added to the site that I couldn't while it was down during last week. So enjoy the online CD, have a great and safe Halloween, and no matter what, play, laugh, love. See you guys next episode.